So this is from Peter Hitchens talking about net zero on Question Time. And I think this is important because I think we'll probably have people on the stream who've got a mix of views on climate change. You'll have some people think that it's more urgent than others, but I think that what this does is it shows it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter if you think that climate change is super serious or you think it's nothing to worry about. Everyone on all sides should agree that net zero, if you just look at the facts, is going to do bugger all. So take a listen to this. I thought that he put this really, really well.
What do people actually think they're achieving? Anybody can look at it's called the energy dashboard. You can get it up on your computer anytime and see on a normal day in this country where the power which is lighting your home and your place of work and everything else you see, where it's coming from. And on a day when the wind isn't blowing, it's largely coming from gas. Or it's coming from imported power, which quite often comes from the Netherlands, where they still burn coal. We don't burn coal anymore because we didn't just close down our coal-fired power stations, we blew them up. We were so certain we were right to do so. At the same time, China is, even as we speak, building the equivalent of two new coal-fired power stations a week. India has a vast expansion program of coal-fired power stations, even if George is right about his tremendous predictions of apocalypse. Even if he's right, the contribution which this country is making by what it's doing to these outcomes is not merely minimal, it's non-existent. Everything that we do is completely blotted out by what much larger countries are doing to maintain their own power. Now, if you want to live in a country with net zero, if you want to live in a country where nobody can afford to heat their house, where people have incredibly expensive and largely non-functioning heat pumps inflicted on them, if you want that kind of thing to happen to you, if you want lots of people to lose their jobs because there's no energy, if you want to be cold all the time, if you want the computers which make life possible in practically every form of life to shut down every so often, then carry on believing that the demand to go for net zero, to keep it in the ground, is intelligent and thoughtful. What do people...
I mean, I think that is absolutely brilliant. I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, Eunice, you did a video recently on net zero, or rather you spoke on GB News about it. And, you know, don't you just think that what Peter Hitchens does here is he really shows that the argument for net zero is purely moralistic. It's not based on any facts at all.
Yeah, it's absolutely nonsense because, as I said on GB News, we live on the same planet, okay? So exporting our energy sources to countries like China, India, and Saudi Arabia doesn't make sense because we live all on the same planet, and it's called climate change, right? So what we are doing is that we are exporting money, essentially. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. We're exporting money. We can drill for oil. We can drill, for coal. We have all kinds of different other energy sources. But then what we are doing, we are putting a strain on the consumer for no point whatsoever. Because the carbon emissions that this country emits is less than 1% of the total global emissions. And China does about almost 30% of total emissions in the world come from China. Think about that, 30%. And I think India does 10 to 15, 20%. And then, you have Saudi, you have America, and then all other countries combined. So what we are doing is not making any difference. It's hurting the British consumer because they have to pay a much higher price for energy, essentially, and then some people can't afford it, and that's why we have the living crisis that we have now, because people can't afford their bills anymore. And it's because of these stupid net zero policies where people have to pay double, triple, and the same thing's happening in America, actually. And that's why Trump keeps saying drill baby drill. Why? Because America has a lot of oil. Why are they buying oil from Venezuela? Why are they buying oil from Saudi Arabia? It just doesn't make sense. So I think in these countries we need to realize that we are not some saints. We have no moral obligation. Okay, fine, if climate change is real, and it probably is, I just don't think human beings that have that much of an influence. Okay, and even if they do, it needs to be a concentrated effort by the whole globe. China, India, Saudi Arabia, America, all of us. We just say, okay, fine, you know what? We're not going to use fossil fuels anymore. Until that happens, it's not going to make a difference whether Britain does it, And it's making this country poorer. Fundamentally, it's making America poor, it's making Europe poorer, and it's making America poorer. And they're going to fall in behind countries such as China, India, Saudi, and etc.
Now, I mean, just to play devil's advocate, Nicholas, some people will argue that even if we make a very small contribution, and in the grand scheme of things, Britain won't change whether the world goes up in flames or not. Some people will say, well, this is a collective action problem. No one country is going to change the outcome, but we've all got to be in it together, and that it's crucial that Britain sets an example. China and other big countries, they're never going to change if they don't see that we're doing the right thing, so we should do it anyway. What would you say to that?
Well, I think that is just complete naivety. If China sees that we're cutting emissions, they're not going to say, oh my God, Keir Starmer is doing such an amazing job. You know what we're also going to do? We're also going to introduce free speech in China. No, they're going to laugh at us.
Exactly.
They're going to laugh at us.
That's a good point, actually.
They're going to laugh at us and kick us while we're down. They want us to do all of this insane climate stuff because it reduces our output and it makes us more reliant upon China and India and Russia and all these other countries where they're not abiding by this climate nonsense. And this is why back in 2017, when Donald Trump pulled the United States out of the climate accords and everyone went mental, that was ultimately a good thing for his economy, because guess who else is a signature of the climate accords? China. And look at what China's doing. They're not making any efforts whatsoever to depollute. If anything, it's getting worse over there. So why in God's name should we have to sacrifice our economy to try and, get the Chinese on board with being eco-friendly when they're clearly not going to do that? And all that's going to do is increase China's geopolitical influence and their global influence over the economy. It is a joke. So anybody saying that is absurdly naive and doesn't really understand global dynamics.
But I mean,
and if they wanted to, they could have introduced democracy. We've been trying to export democracy for the last 50 to 100 years. Why are they not following us in that lead, as Nicholas said?
Well, exactly. Exactly.
Do you think that there is anything that we can do to persuade China to change their ways and to be more green? Like, can we put a load of... If we really, really started to think, shit, guys, the planet's really warming up, we think our emissions are making a really huge difference to the world, let's say this is this might not be for another 20, 30 or however many years, but let's say shit hits the fan and we really do need China to change their actions. Is it possible? Can we put a load of sanctions on them? Do we have the power to do it, or are we're just gonna
let's look at the example of Russia after Ukraine. We put the motherload of all sanctions on Russia, and what are we seeing right now? They promised that this would crash the Russian economy. Putin would have to withdraw all of his troops from Ukraine and he'd start wearing a peace necklace. No, the Russian economy actually is doing better than the British economy at the moment. They're seeing larger GDP on average. And what's going to happen is if we put a bunch of sanctions on China, we're going to still buy their products, like the EU still buys Russian gas, but at a much higher price through India or China for a second party. So if anything, sanctions are not going to work. They're not going to work. And plus, China would just, put a gun to the global economy and say, okay, you sanction us, we will stop producing all of your terrible e-scooters and all of that. We will stop exporting. We'll stop it. So effectively, China is holding the entire world hostage. So if we want to completely crush our economy and at the same time have higher prices, then be my guest. Follow through with Greta Thunberg's weird green cult agenda. And
good thing you say that, Nicholas, because that was the perfect segue to what I'm going to show you next.
Oh, fantastic!
So, because Greta Thunberg, she was into the whole climate thing, but then Palestine just got a bit cooler, so it became more trendy. So she sort of segued to that, and Greta Thunberg was singing, or should I say, screeching, at a pro-Palestine rally, and just take a listen to the contents of what she's actually saying. Also, I'll probably point out before I play this, I bet you that car is not electric that she's singing out of. Anyway, take a listen to this. Show me what the people looks like. Show me what power looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like.
She's so cringe.
Show me what the people look like.
She has such a beautiful voice.
Show me what power looks like.
Just cringeworthy.
One struggle, one fight. Climate justice, human rights. She can't hit the notes.
No, which is clearly not professionally trained.
One struggle,
Oh God.
Climate justice, human rights.
Maybe she should go to Star
I
Wars.
won't make
local
you watch it
coaches.
again because your eardrums might bleed.
Oh
But
my god.
I mean, that was just absolutely hilarious. But I mean, Eunice, she's
Yeah.
there at a pro-Palestinian rally. She's talking about Gaza, and then she's saying, "Show me what democracy looks like." I mean, I might be wrong, but I mean, is she suggesting that there's democracy in Gaza, and that's the example we should be following?
But that's exactly what the woke mind virus does, you know? They would take
Gays for
positions that is
Gaza.
completely contradictory to the reality. There is no such thing as democracy in Gaza. You know, if you want a free Palestinian, if you want democracy in Palestine, you have to get rid of these groups such as Hamas. And if you want democracy in southern Lebanon, you have to get rid of Hezbollah. And if you want democracy, you have to get rid of the Islamic Republic of Iran. But these people, as I said, it's the woke mind virus. They can't think. I just wanted to make one more point about the previous video and the environment and people like Greta Thunberg and people that have this woke mind virus. I actually studied this in depth, and when I came out of university, I was actually a very pro-environmentalist person. I was like, yeah, we have to go green. But now I actually truly believe that, hey, we actually need carbon for a healthy environment. And Jordan Peterson said something very interesting. He was like, if you want to tackle the environmental issue, first you need to develop the undeveloped world, because people in the underdeveloped world, they don't actually care about the environment until their GDP per capita goes to $5,000 per year, right? So you need to tackle that, and the world still has a lot of growing to do. Like, fossil fuels are absolutely paramount into growing the economy of especially the underdeveloped world, so countries in Africa, some countries in Asia. So we're gonna need fossil fuels for the next 50 to 100 years. And yeah, that's all I've got to say. And these people really need to stop. It's the woke mind virus, and it's literally taking the West backwards to the point of we're going broke, and our morals are deteriorating, and we are siding with the wrong side, all, you know, disguised as, oh, we're so empathetic. No, you're not empathetic. You're stupid.
So
well, I mean, maybe Greta
Nicholas
is merely celebrating.
Yeah, Paul says that Greta is Eurovision material. Do you agree, Nicholas?
Oh, completely. I mean, she has got such a beautiful voice. I must say, she should really represent Sweden at the next Eurovision. But I'll tell you right now, I think Greta might be supporting Hamas because their actions have actually led to the complete deindustrialization of Gaza. So, I mean, maybe from a climate perspective, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why
they've got no economy left, so they won't be polluting at all. Oh, what a
I know, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like the dolphins will return, like we saw in the
Fantastic.
pandemic. But no, I mean, she is a complete joke. She's a grifter. I mean, as we saw last year with her fake arrest at a climate protest, she's trying to become this sort of hard, all-around activist, yet she's picking the wrong fights. She is now supporting what's effectively a, terroristic death cult. I mean, let's face it, Hamas is not somebody you really want to align yourself with. I mean, they keep weapons in hospitals and near playgrounds. I mean, come on.
I know, she says singing about democracy and human rights. I mean, she's just deluded. And people are like, oh, this is such a smart young girl. She's so much smarter than all the politicians that don't know anything about the climate or human rights.
She's an absolute moron.
I know,
completely.
But do you know what? I googled her age. She's actually 21 now. She looks like she's still 12, I have to say.
Yeah, she hasn't grown.
No.
She needs to eat more meat.
I thought she hadn't even been through puberty.
She's 20. She's 21. I mean, someone said in the chat in response to her singing that her voice is just starting to break.
Have you got what it takes to be a reasoned presenter? Well, send us a short clip of yourself to join@reasoned.uk, and we might be seeing you on this very channel very soon indeed.